Hi there. This is video number 17. This is the part where I'm doing sort of the challenge to myself, not moderated by stick.com. I managed that challenge, 2 videos a week for 8 weeks. My timing was off on a couple of them. There were 5 out of 8 I got in on time, and 3 out of 8, well, I had to pay a small penalty. It wasn't outrageous, but, you know, still, it stings a little bit. Okay, I'm still behind on getting my links together for you. That is coming along. I will deliver, but hopefully by the time I make the next video, that will be done. You'll have it. Right now, first of all, I want to tell you a little bit about my day. Some friends of mine took me to basically what was a spiritualist psychic fair. I don't know if you know anything about the spiritualist church. It's interesting, and it's a relatively modern development. In the 1840s, there were some instances of what people at the time thought was contact with the dead. In America, the spiritualist movement started with the Fox sisters in New York State, and there's a whole story there connected with that. Now, I visited both of their major centers. There's one in Indiana called Chesterfield, and there's another one in upstate New York called Lilydale. They're kind of interesting places. You kind of get the party line. They're good people, and their ideas are interesting, and there's something to them. But a lot of times you tend to get the party line. As an astrologer, I didn't get a great reception, but partly that's because spiritualism, along with several other new developments in the area of religion and spiritual beliefs, or beliefs about spiritual things, might be a better way to put it. From an astrological point of view, is a manifestation of the planet Neptune. Right now, I'm getting ahead of myself here, excuse me. That's right around the time that the planet Neptune was discovered. Neptune, most astrologers who have some understanding of the outer planets, the invisible ones that have been discovered since we invented the telescope, don't have too many good things to say about it. There are some modern astrologers who think that Neptune has the potential to be wonderful, but it's always been associated on its positive side. Neptune is sometimes associated with spirituality, religion, spiritual interests, and sometimes great art. Neptune is the universal solvent. It dissolves everything, and the reason that it is connected with spirituality and inspired art. Sometimes it gets connected with some pretty awful art too, but that's another story. The reason that it gets connected with these things is it is the universal solvent. It dissolves boundaries. It dissolves the boundaries between the worlds, between the visible and the invisible worlds, between the spiritual and the material to a certain extent. it uh, it does very often act in a negative way, in that it dissolves personalities, economies, all sorts of things, organizations, doesn't matter. Neptune is the universal solvent. It dissolves everything. And part of the way it dissolves these things is by eliminating the boundaries between them and everything else. So it's also connected with the idea of illusions, fantasies, wrong ideas about relationships, for example, and certainly economies. It's almost never a good influence economically. It's also been associated with fraud, which is another one of those boundary issues. It's like, if you're not firm about your boundaries, people can talk you into all sorts of things. And it's also connected with ideologies, especially socialism, in that right around the time Neptune was discovered in 1846, that's when Marx and Engels wrote a book called Das Kapital, which is sort of the foundation text for Marx expressing his ideas about socialism. Right around the same time, they also wrote the Communist Manifesto and things like that. Now, on the religious front, which is another manifestation of Neptune, we got the Baha'i movement, which started, I believe, somewhere in Iran. And the Baha'i movement basically says that, all religions are just variant expressions of the same thing. And they go to great lengths to find this, the similarities between the different religions, and they blend that into what they call the Baha'i faith. And those of them that I've met, most of them are, they're good people. I have noticed a lot of times it's correct, and astrologically you get this from the association of Jupiter with religion, that most of the time folks who are genuinely religious tend to be, generous, reasonably compassionate and considerate, and all the positive things you would associate with religion. Now there are religions that have a little bit of a twist on them that are not, where a lot of their followers, their members, or their professed members, I should say, are not exactly what you would consider to be open and friendly and supportive to anybody who's not a member of their faith or, one of their partners. And in fact, I know a lot of people who, when dealing with these kinds of folks who basically use religion for their own purposes rather than trying to use it, trying to offer it as something that you can use to help get your spiritual bearings, or just live a more orderly and reasonable life. It's said about them, when they start talking about God, put your hand on your wallet, make sure it's still there, make sure they don't get their hands on it. So there are a lot of variants. Now, Neptune also is associated with, any form of promoting or selling an illusion. It's certainly connected with advertising and marketing to a certain extent, and it has become connected with politics. In sales, a lot of times they say, you're not selling the steak, you're selling the sizzle, and the sizzle is Neptune. The sizzle is the picture they want you to have of it, the taste they want you to have in your mouth, and they know that you can buy steaks anywhere, and if you're a little bit discerning about it, you can buy high quality steaks anywhere. However, they're not that they have learned that that's not really the way to push your button. The way to push your button and get you to buy their steak as opposed to any other is to basically sell you a picture of what that steak means, of how it makes you feel, of the kind of taste that it gives you, of the ambience of the places where you might eat it, or the special occasions with which it might be connected. And in fact, I just spoke with a woman a day or two ago who said that, every once in a while she goes to this specialty meat shop to get her husband a steak for his birthday because he really likes their steaks. And so for her, the sizzle for this steak is that it makes her husband happy. It pleases him. It's something he likes. And it's a way for her to show her appreciation to him on his birthday. And so she does that every year. However, this is just sort of an example of one of the kinds of I can almost talk too, of sizzle that can be used to market things and sell things. You're not really selling them the product, you're selling them their picture of how the product is going to make them feel, what they're going to do with the product that'll make their life better, things like that. And that's true in almost anything you're going to present where you have to sell an idea, where you have to get people behind an idea, either to get support for it, whether that's financial or political or whatever. You got to sell them the sizzle, and you got to figure out what kind of sizzle is going to appeal to them. But that's all, marketing and audiences and stuff like that. But it's also politics. And right now, it seems to me that that most of the politicians have sort of forgotten this lesson. Their handlers, the people they hire to do their, to promote their campaigns, manage their campaigns, help them decide, what's going to appeal, what's going to get them more votes. And they don't seem to be quite on top of their game. Right now, we're in the last days before the congressional elections, the midterm, the off season, and that is in terms of the presidential election in the United States. I forget. Some of my viewers may not be from the United States, so your political experience may be a little different, but right now, what's going on in the United States is most of the people who are in charge of, marketing and advertising, promoting their candidates, they're slinging mud, lots of mud at each other. Yes, they're also running ads that and promoting the picture that, oh, our candidate is just like you. He has the same concerns. He's been fighting for you. Ra-da-da-da-da-da-da. In some cases, this is true. In some cases, it's stretching the truth. And on the other side of this little campaign here, they are telling you all kinds of horrible things about their opposition, painting a negative picture of their opposition and trying to appeal to you to, even if you don't much care for their candidate, that you're going to think that their opposition is far worse. Well, this is this is something you have to make up your mind for yourself about, who and what you're going to believe. But what I'm telling you is that this stuff that has to do with religion, politics, advertising, and even propaganda. And we'll hit that in a second. but even propaganda is all related back to the planet Neptune, and it's all about dissolving boundaries. And one of the ways that they're dissolving boundaries when they use it in politics is they're trying to dissolve the boundary between your day-to-day experience and your day-to-day, month-to-month concerns and what their candidate stands for. They want you to identify with them. They want you or her. They want you to feel that this person has the same concerns you do, lives roughly the same kind of life you do, and is going to do everything in their power to satisfy your needs and take care of you. This may or may not be true, but that's the picture, and that's how Neptune is working there. They're dissolving boundaries. Now, propaganda, yes. As far as we can tell historically, the British were kind of the pioneers of propaganda, and they used it moderately successfully in the First World War. Now, it's true that the Germans kind of stepped over the line to some extent in terms of the way they treated folks in Belgium. The British found some instances, and they made a lot of hay on that in terms of propaganda. And they used that to encourage enlistment in their armed forces. They used that to encourage their allies and people they wanted to have become their allies, like the United States, for instance, to see the Germans as bad guys. Well, in the First World War, everybody was a bad guy and everybody was a good guy. And depending on whose accounts and information you read, and of course your cultural background, you can see this from, a dozen different ways. The situation in the Second World War was a little bit different. Some of the people who used propaganda the most were the Germans, and they were very good at it. If you look into, I once remarked to my communications department people when I was at Michigan State, they had a big portrait of I forget who the guy really was now, but of this guy who was a big wheel in communications, who's and important in founding their particular department or method they used or something like that. And I remarked, I said, you should have a big portrait of Joseph Goebbels right there, and a little thing underneath says "Our founder," because Goebbels pioneered a lot of the techniques and the use of a lot of new media in propaganda, advertising, all that kind of stuff. And after the Second World War, although nobody wanted to be associated with the Nazis, excuse me, although nobody wanted to be associated with the Nazis, everybody jumped on their methods. And that Goebbels' techniques sort of became the core of a lot of the stuff that you learn, not directly connected, of course, but a lot of the stuff that you learn in communications and advertising and politics. So anyway, Neptune is a very important factor, and knowing that, it tells you two things. The first is to develop the ability to discern the difference between, what is and what's not, but is being presented as if it is. The difference between realities and illusions. But the other thing is to be sensitive to this idea of boundaries. Don't let people dissolve your boundaries. Don't let them step over your boundaries. I mean, I personally, I try and practice a policy of porous boundaries, which means that in general, I try and be firm about, where my boundaries are, what my limits are, what I'll tolerate and what I won't. I mean, that's all part of boundaries. But I also try and be open enough so that, I can at least, get a sniff of the stuff coming through so that I can get an idea of, well, do I want to know more about this, or is this just another variety of this BS that's being put out by, or well, it's not all BS, but or is this just another variety of the stuff that's trying to hook me into something that I'm either not really interested in, or that's it's just not on my radar for consideration right now. I mean, one of the things that I find both amusing and sometimes irritating is a lot of these people who call you up on the telephone. They're okay. They'll call you up an outright scam. They say, well, there's a problem with your tax return, and you need to contact us to take care of it. Well, the federal government doesn't operate that way. If there's a problem with your tax return, the first thing you'll do is you'll get a letter, okay, in the mail with an IRS return address on it. That's the first thing that'll happen. And then after that, well, you might need to meet with somebody from the IRS, or it might be something simple that you can clear up by sending them a couple pieces of paperwork. These people say, oh, you have huge tax debt. Well, you can pay us directly and that'll take care of it. Well, come on. That's a good way to empty your bank account. And that's one of the worst examples. Some of the examples that are just flat humorous are, okay, many years ago I paid off my student loans, right? But these people have bad lists. They keep calling me. They keep saying, oh, well, we can help you pay off your student loan in record time. And I'm saying, well, I don't have a student loan. I paid them off. It's all done. Another one is, I don't drive. I don't own a motor vehicle. And I keep getting these things where people are calling up saying, the warranty is expiring on your vehicle, or we can save you hundreds of dollars on your auto insurance. And I'm saying, okay, well, you have a bad list. And as soon as they start this stuff, I just hang up on them now. I mean, I don't have time. And I certainly have better things to do with my time. But anyway, and these people are not, they're not even practicing selling the sizzle, at least not at that point. They're using, they're trying to use shock to basically get you to think that your boundaries aren't where you thought they were, that there's a problem you need to take care of. But anyway, I'm running over my time a little bit. I did want to say a few words about Neptune, and to reassure you that I'm going to get on the stick and get those resource pages out for you. And I've got a couple other marketing things I need to do, which some of them will be candidates for inclusion as resources, and some of them won't. And the thing that made me think about Neptune is I went to this spiritualist psychic fair today. Some friends of mine who are kind of involved in it asked me to come along, and I said, well, it's something different, and it was pretty amazing from some angles. One was that, I mean, they charge you flat $20. You can have as many readings from as many different readers as you want, and they had a bunch. And I mean, usually at these things it's like $20 a pop. But here it was like I had 3 readings, I got a massage, and I had a session with a guy who's sort of a healer, and helped me sort out a couple of things I was wondering about. And I'm saying, hey, under normal circumstances, that would have cost me at least $100, and here I got it for 20. Nice deal. And they fed me too. They had a little, luncheon. The food wasn't bad. It was, kind of potluck kind of thing, but the food was good. Um, and it reminded me that, first of all, I needed to make sure that I was true to myself and followed up on my commitment to deliver at least a video a week, and which I'm doing right now, and that I wanted to tell you about Neptune. Neptune's a very interesting planet, both physically and astrologically. It's a gas giant, and it's got a little moon called Triton, which is supposed to be, which the astronomers tell us is rich in various gases that right now we use to burn, to heat our homes in a lot of cases. A lot of gases there, and Neptune itself is a gas giant, but it's so large the gravity would crush us. I'm not sure if probably they'll develop technologies to go down there and exploit it if they decide that it's, really worth doing. But at this stage, it's just big. And astrologically, Neptune's illusions and movements and influence are big. But they're like the gas giant. There's not a whole lot behind most of them, and they only become dangerous when, sometimes they don't become dangerous at all, but they only become dangerous when they cross the line into being a scam, or when they're used to manipulate large masses of people for negative ends. Because, look, we all practice influence and manipulation to a certain extent all the time, and we're receiving it from others all the time. Another reason to be firm about your boundaries and to tune up your ability to discern, which some people call a BS detector. So anyway, oh my, I've run over on my time, but see you next time, and as soon as humanly possible, all things taken into account and being equal, I will get those links up for you. So have a great day, have a great week, and I look forward to making another one of these for you.